ranking our top 3 center fielders ever to wear a Phillies jersey. Now, keep in mind, as we started this yesterday with the right fielders, we are every day going to be bringing you our top 3 because eventually we're going to put together a depth chart with our best Phillies of all time by position, have a nice picture for you with the depth chart of 1, 2, and 3, and also be able to just have an idea of like what would the best ever Phillies lineup be. So today we're getting into center fielders, and we're also only including their time with the Phillies. So we're not looking at their entire career. We are strictly just looking at their time here with the Phillies and their productivity. So this list for center field was very tricky. I know I just saw on Twitter, and shout out to Mr. Mark Spidey 84, who was sharing his list with us. He's got a very interesting list, and it's similar to ours. And you guys, let us know your list in the chat as well in order 1, 2, and 3 best center fielders ever. So now it gets interesting. Let's start with number 3. And I'll start with number 1, actually. I feel like number 1 is the one that we can all agree on, and there's no hesitations about who sits at that number 1 spot, best ever for the Phillies. It is Jamie. I'm just kidding. Richie Ashburn.
Jamie, did you play any center field in your life?
The best ever center fielder to play for the Phillies. Played with the Phillies through 1948 to 1959. And during that time, look at that classic picture of Richie. Listen, we are, of course, honoring all Phillies. So whether it's today's game or back in the day. Now, Richie Ashburn played 12 total years with the Phillies, which went out to almost 1,800 total games. His stats, 311, 394, 388 with 2,217 hits and also hit 22 home runs. During that time also, 586 RBIs, 317 doubles, 234 stolen bases. He also led the league in a number of different categories during his time. 3 times that he led the league in hits, in walks, in on-base percentage. And in all that time, he, of course, was a 4-time NL All-Star, 2-time batting champ, Hall of Famer. Richie finished his career just being one of the best to ever play and definitely the best center fielders. And I don't know anybody that has a list of top center fielders and does not have Richie Ashburn at that number 1 spot. Consistent, gave it all, and was able to just in so many ways help this team out. And his numbers, his presence with the Phillies, his legacy with the Phillies, numero uno.
Yeah, and he was number 1 on the back of his jersey. He's number 1 center fielder. Anytime you're a Hall of Famer, I mean, you're probably going to be at the top of the list. That's why Chuck Klein got the nod over Bryce and Bobby Baseball yesterday. I mean, getting enshrined in Cooperstown means you were absolutely one of the best in your era. Nearly a career 400 on base percentage for Whitey, a 308 career hitter. He was a tremendous player. So, yeah, I don't think anybody's going to debate Richie number 1.
Yeah, to take it a step further, Richie Ashburn, 4th in WAR amongst position players for the Phillies all time with a 58.2,
Wow.
3rd in O-WAR amongst those same players, 13th in D-WAR, which means he was a pretty solid defender as well. Quite a few really, really good defenders ahead of him. 11th in average all time, 9th in on-base percentage all time for this team, 3rd in hits with 22-17 behind just Mike Schmidt and Jimmy Rollins. I don't think there's any question when it comes to center fielders in the Phillies organization history who number 1 is. It's undoubtedly Richie Ashburn at number 1.
Yeah, consistently hitting over 300 each season, and also he played all but 3 of his seasons as a professional with the Phillies, and the legacy that he built during that time definitely locked him in at that number 1 spot. So it was an easy choice for number 1. It was a relatively less easy, but still pretty simple choice for number 2. Number 3 gets a little bit hairy. So number 2 for us on our list, Gary Maddox. Now, on the fielding side alone, the numbers that Gary Maddox has had locks him into that number 2 spot. So 12 years with the Phillies, where he played 1,328 games. His splits, 284, 334, 09, with 1,333 hits, 85 home runs, 249 doubles, 566 RBIs with 556 runs and 189 stolen bases. 7-time Gold Glove, 5th MVP, and 11.1 D-WAR. He was truly a defensive specialist, and that is what absolutely has to put him at that number 2 spot for center field. Incredible speed, incredible hand-eye coordination. And just someone that had a killer instinct for being able to read the play, anticipate, and make big plays defensively. And to have those numbers of hits, RBIs, and total bases, it was on the glove side that definitely made him easily a number 2 choice, but then also had a solid at bats that he could provide you. So
yeah, I mean,
Wall of Fame, World Series champ in 1980. The list goes on and on for all the accolades that he's had in his career, specifically with the Phillies.
7 consecutive Gold Gloves
Wild.
is absolutely bonkers for one of the hardest positions in all of baseball. That alone got him into the 2 territory, but he wasn't that bad offensively either. He had a 29.0 B WAR and his 1,300 hits, our 4th all-time among Philly center fielders. He's 2nd in doubles amongst Philly center fielders and RBIs, and 3rd in stolen bases. So, you hold down a glove like that in the outfield, that makes your pitchers' lives a lot easier. 7 consecutive Gold Gloves is absolutely ridiculous, and he is the reason for one of the great all-time Philadelphia sports quotes from the great Ray Didinger. What is it? 80% of the world is covered by water.
2/3 of the earth is covered by water.
Yeah. And the other is covered by Gary
and the
Maddox.
other third is covered by Gary Maddox. One of the great all-time quotes. Number 2, that was pretty easy.
Yeah, and a World Series champion again, 1980. But also you look at his performance in the postseason and how he was able to help this team win a World Series. And then also just the numbers, 1976, 77, and 78, he batted a career high 330, 292, and 288. So as much as you talk about him as a defensive specialist, definitely gave you a lot on the other side of the ball too. All right.
Fleet-footed on the bases too. 24 or more stolen, or 22 or more stolen bases from 75 to 80. So over the course of 6 seasons, at least 22 stolen bases. Had some good speed. I don't think that you could be when you talk about like OPS plus, he's 101 OPS plus over the course of 15 years, which is effectively about offensively as average as you can be, because 100 OPS is average. However, when you dive deeper into the individual numbers, you start to separate the fact that he was a really good, I shouldn't say really good, he was a very utilizable offensive piece who could move a little bit, who hit for average for a bulk of his career, 285 career average. And that OPS plus gets skewed a little bit because he wasn't a home run guy, didn't drive a ton of runs in, but he didn't strike out a lot. And then, of course, you add the defense to the conversation. He's one of the greatest defensive center fielders of all time. I think this is a pretty easy choice at 2.
Yeah, 18th all-time across the league in career putouts. Also, 6th all-time amongst outfielders in range factor per 9 innings at 2.96. Yeah, one of the best, honestly, and 8 times that he won the Gold Glove, just, of course, 7 in a row with the Phillies. So, number 2, Gary Maddox. Now, don't show number 3 yet, Tyler. Let's keep the suspense going a bit longer because there is a bit of a toss-up between who's 3 and 4. And, honestly, you can make the case for either one.
Cy Williams.
Is it the Flying Hawaiian, Shane Victorino, or is it Lenny? Is he number 3? Jamie, I know we talked about this back and forth of who we feel like should be number 3 and number 4. This was a tricky one. And I know in the chat you guys are like, it's Herrera that's got to make the list. It's not. I'm sorry to break it to you.
Bobby Dernier.
It's not Bobby either. But it's not Lenny Dykstra either.
Kenny Lofton.
Or Kenny Lofton.
If it was their entire career, not their Phillies years, then yeah, Kenny Lofton would probably be here.
For sure.
Exactly. But looking specifically at Phillies years, best productivity, it's the one
Michael
and only
Bourne.
3 Gold Glove winning Flying Hawaiian
Roman Quinn.
Shane Victorino with 8 years with the Phillies, 987 games. Keep in mind that 987 games, we'll bring that up later. His splits, 279, 345, 439 with 998 hits, 88 home runs, 181 doubles, 489 RBIs, 731 runs total, and 179 stolen bases. He was a 3-time Gold Glover, 3-time that he got in the 30-plus stolen base category, 306 with 12 RBIs and 5 NLDS. Shane Victorino, an NL All-Star, who honestly, it's very tough when comparing him and Lenny because it's 2 different types of careers and the reasons why they were successful and all this, that, and the third. And so we ended up going with Shane Victorino, the 3 consecutive Gold Glove winner.
Yeah, look, there's a couple things against Lenny here. One being he only played 2 seasons of over 90 games, or 2 seasons with the Phillies over 90 games. twice while here. He had a phenomenal year in 93, runner-up in the MVP, was like a 7-WAR player, aided by steroids. I mean, let's be serious. That, I think, hurts you in this discussion. And then just generally being a J.O. of a human, I think definitely detracts from this too. Shane Victorino was a really good baseball player, better offensive slash lines than Gary Maddox. You could almost, if it wasn't for the 7 Gold Gloves, Shane has 3. You know, if that's a little closer, I think that becomes a pretty good discussion. But Shane Victorino was clutch too. You know, like, let's not forget the grand slam off CC Sabathia. You know, he had a game-tying home run in Game 4 of the NLCS that year. He was clutch. He was fast. Tyler and I were talking about it before the show. Probably a little over-remembered as a defensive player because he was so athletic and can kind of make up for some sloppy route running and just general mistakes. Really good arm, really fast on the bases. Switch hitter, was just like a pain in the ass that you knew the opposition didn't really want to face in a big spot in a game. Shane Victorino was an awesome player. So for me, it was kind of easy to put him over Lenny because of the longevity, because he was a steady player that didn't have injury history. And, he's a good dude on the opposite end of the spectrum of Lenny and didn't juice. So for me, it was easy to put him number 3 there.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the numbers of Victorino compared to Maddox, you talk about how close it was. Victorino slashing a 279, 345, 439 with a 106 OPS plus with the Phillies. Maddox had a 284, 320, 409 with a 99 OPS plus. Very close in the numbers and what separates them. But then on the other side, as you mentioned, the ability to play in more games. I know in the chat it was talked about Lenny's health. Yeah, Lenny did have struggles staying on the field, and he played significantly less games. And also, as you mentioned, dealing with the fact that he was juicing. And even Phillies manager Nick Leiva, was mentioning Lenny as being like a mosquito when you're outdoors. You're always waiting for him to bite you. And I was like, oh, that's quite the quote, because I haven't heard many players or people being compared to a mosquito that you're just waiting to bite you. But either way, Lenny definitely in that number 4 spot that you can say and argue number 3 as well. But Shane Victorino takes our 3rd spot on the top center fielders list.